very interesting guests. And we're going to be talking about COVID-19 and small businesses, the challenges we face as small business owners, and the options that might be available for us. So speaking with me, I have a lot of gurus, actually. I just realized it's an all-male panel. Don't worry, we have a female joining us soon. So we've got Perez Tigidam. Perez is everything brand. He is a brand consultant, he's a photographer, he's a media person, he writes, he does everything. He's a jack of every trade, and he loves a story. I call him an incurable serial entrepreneur. And my word is incurable. Perez is here, and he is the creative director of Adna Newton. He also publishes The Nerve Africa. And he says he is the best thing to happen to branding in Africa. Perez, welcome.
Thank you.
And then I have this guy who has such an intimidating profile. I'm wondering if I should introduce him. So I have Jeku here. Jeku Ozomena is an SME expert. He's a development planning expert. He's a banker. He says he's an amateur economist. I'm not sure about that. He's a writer. He's a poet. He's a male. But Jeku has done a lot of things. He's worked in banking in Rwanda. He was MD of Access Bank in Rwanda. He was Deputy MD of Access Bank in Kenya. He's on the board of not one or two development organizations, but plenty. He currently helps people figure out what they need to be doing in business. So he does help provide consulting for businesses. But like I said, his forte is SME. And also he does quite a bit of work in development housing. Jeku, welcome.
Thank you so much.
It's good to have you. We will be having join us Oti Kalu Uche, and he is I don't know if he calls himself the creative head, the creative director, but he is the CEO of Loche Clothing. He sews clothes, but he sews clothes that cost money. But it's not just that. Oti has done some phenomenal work in terms of branding, but in terms of his service delivery. And so he's going to be talking to us again about how he's coping. Nobody is so interested now. What's going on? How is Oti surviving? He'll be talking to us. And then further down, we're going to have Aibee Amakri join us. Aibee Amakri is another incurable entrepreneur, from doing hair to making clothes to selling artifacts to being a poet to being a writer, and right now to running the farmers market. Aibee will also be joining us. But right now we're going to start with Mecca and Jeku. So Perez, how is the lockdown treating you? Perez, how is the lockdown treating you?
I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Perez, how is
okay, I can hear you now.
Yes, how is the lockdown treating you?
Oh, well, I think that we've gradually adjusted ourselves. Everybody has adjusted to.
Okay, we just lost him. I don't know. That must be a connection thing. I don't know why we lost him. We just lost him. Jeku, please, before he comes back on, because I think we just lost him and I think it might be connection from his end. But Jeku, for small businesses, we're sitting down and it's tough. How can small businesses survive COVID-19? Because it's bad for us. Clients are not coming.
COVID-19 is bad for everybody, not just small businesses. However, because small businesses constitute a significant portion of most economies, even Nigeria's economy, I think small businesses probably drive about 80% of our economy.
Yeah.
86%, so it's almost 90%. But beyond that, small businesses are the largest employer of labor. You know, we tend to be fixated on the big names, the big corporates, because we see those ones. But on aggregate basis, small businesses will probably employ 70 to 80% of the an economy. So if we don't come up with measures to address their needs right now, it means that we would never. So I'm not even talking about small businesses as individual units now. I'm talking about the economy as a whole. Without addressing small businesses, we cannot come out of a recession, worse, a depression, right? So this is not just about small businesses. I know it's important that we take care of them, but this is about the larger society. If we find ourselves, we have been home. You asked Perez earlier how he has been coping with the lockdown.
Yeah.
I don't know how he. Okay, so the difference, they know Perez is an international man. Right? So we have contacts with all over the world, right?
Yeah, like.
Unfortunately, being international now doesn't help too much because almost everywhere is locked down.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So because a question, I've had a couple of people reach out to me even this morning, saying, you know, we are trying so hard not to lay off people, right? But and salaries are due now. But if we pay these salaries now, we are not sure how we are going to pay the next salary.
That's my hand up right here. That's my situation right now.
So there we are. We are focused on giving palliatives to the most vulnerable. That's what he says, the most vulnerable, 20,000 naira, etc. But the real vulnerable is this army of people that will be on the streets come next month if we can't pay their salaries. So maybe even me, I'm part of the army of people that will be on the streets.
I see my hands up right now. I don't even know where to go.
So how is the lockdown going? These are the concerns that occupy my mind during this lockdown. Perez is back now, so he can take over.
Yeah, so Perez, how are you coping? Because this is it. Although they say you're an international man, so maybe I don't want the rest of us.
Well, like you said, everywhere is on lockdown. There's no international right now. Everybody's thinking local right now. So survival mode means sort of retracing your steps back in-house and being able to look inward and what survival opportunities exist around you. On a personal note, I think that I've adapted to the period because Lagos is sort of ground zero for the whole corona virus. But business-wise, I think that we adapted pretty well, and this is because I think I made a post sometime last week on Facebook. We were able to sort of adapt pretty well because of our experience in 2016 when we had a similar downtime with businesses in the country. That was a recession. So we learned our lessons, and we're able to sort of prepare ourselves. It's actually interesting that you have Jeku on here because he's one of the people who writes about the economy quite a lot, and I read most of the things he writes, and most times I read and I sort of try to look at it. What are the implications? What are the implications of the state of the economy on our business, on the kind of business we do? And I also must state that I think that the peculiarity of the challenges also has to do with the sort of business you're in and the industry that you are in. So I work in communications, and in 2016, what happened was sort of we are unprepared when the whole thing happened, and we are caught in the middle, just in survival mode, hoping to survive, hoping for when the whole challenge would go, and then until everything came crumbling. So one of the things that helped us do was sort of rethink our business model, how we run the kind of business that we run. So I'll say if I try to capture the lessons from that time into a sentence, I would say for small businesses, don't fall in love with the industry that you are in. Fall in love with the business model that you run. Trying to ensure that your business model is adaptable to the situation you find yourself in, to the environment you find yourself in, to the economy. So after we have that experience, what I simply did was we evolved our business model, and we started sort of running a retainer model kind of communications outfit. So at every point in time, we know that we have relationships that carry us for the next 3-6 months, 3-4-6 months, 1 year down the line. So when all of this happened, the first thing we did was, what are our expectations? What's cash flow like? What are we expecting over the next 3, 4, 5 months? How do we readjust ourselves, knowing that it might be possible that this is the only thing that you'll be expecting this period? How do you rework yourself? So the first thing to take note of was our cost points. Our cost points. What are the different cost points, operation-wise, that we need to be able to look at? So the first thing we did was look at the area of salaries, which I know it's one key area. Like Jacob mentioned, a lot of people are firing. Yesterday, I spoke with 2 people who just got fired from their companies because the company is trying to cut down on cost and all of those things. So the first thing we did was, we need our people. We need our team. We run a small team of about 8 to 9 people. And we can't just start saying, okay, we want to let off those people. What if opportunities come along the line? And we need to be able to sort of manage these processes. So the first thing we did was assure everybody that, okay, we'll find a way to navigate the challenge together. Nobody will be thrown out of the boat. But what we are going to do is that for salaries, we all have to bear the pains and take a pay cut.
Wow.
And take a pay cut, yes. So we discussed this amongst ourselves, and everybody agreed. We agreed on the percentage of the pay cuts that we have to take. And then the next steps we had to look at was, what are there any inflows that we are looking at between now and the next 2 months? Should this problem last 3 months? How are we going to manage? How are we going to manage it? Now, in terms of coping with the challenge, also there's also the internal challenge of staff, people complaining about power, people complaining about data. Now, on management and leadership level, you are caught in between welfare, getting things done, appeasing your clients, and at the same time still being in survival mode, ensuring that everything works. So what we had to do was ensure that we are able to provide resources to everybody for data management, so people can work effectively from home. Then we started leveraging technology and onboarding everybody on platforms where we can work together, even integrate clients into our workflow and our processes. So on that level of internal management, we've sort of been able to get things going seamlessly. What we are now thinking about is, what's the next phase for our survival plan? If this thing runs into 6 months, what do we do? If you read Jacob's posts very well, one of the things you should know is that, and it's what I was just sharing with one of my colleagues this morning. I think that we've become so trapped in the worries of the corona that we've taken our eyes off every other thing. And one of the things we don't actually know is that there's a recession knocking on our doors.
Yeah,
exactly. So there's a recession knocking on our doors. But because of the fear, coronavirus has become a distraction. So we don't even know. So let's even assume that this whole thing goes away in the next 1 month. What do we do? Are we preparing the SMEs just for the coronavirus, or we are preparing them for a general downtime kind of economy? How do they cope in a downtime economy? So it's not just about the pandemic in itself.
It's post-COVID.
Exactly. So post-COVID, there's a long-term challenge. There are some other challenges waiting in front for us. Recession. How do we manage that? Because the recession is not just because there's a lockdown or something. companies are trying to cut down on costs. This is when you see CFOs of every company showing that, look, it's our time to be the boss here. Nobody wants to spend. Everybody wants to cut down on costs. Things like communications. Who does advertising during a period of recession? So for this period of pandemic, yeah, to an extent, you still have a bit of marketing activities going on. People need to communicate. People need to communicate the right way, so they don't get into a crisis moment also within this period. So you see that even for for example, we've had a couple of prospective clients within this period who are coming to us to say, is it possible for you guys to help us manage our communications short term within this period? Because we probably do not have the expertise to do some of these things. We've not been doing it as effectively as we should before, but we need people who can manage it for us this period. Now, that brings us to another dynamic. If you have a prospective business this period, what do you do? Do you still want to quote like you've been quoting before, or you have to make room for adjustments in your pricing, in your quoting, just to be able to ensure that you get new business that you can add up to your survival reservoir? So I'll stop for now and let Jeku take up from here.
Okay, so this is wonderful, Jeku. And it was interesting listening to Perez, and he brings up quite a few things which I'm sure you're going to be talking about. So yes, if you have a bouquet of clients, it makes it easy. If you're a day-to-day business, so as they come and go, you have to talk to me about that. The micro business people, Jeku, what would be the options for them? But also a critical thing is the recession post-COVID. And it's not just because things are tough, it's the fact that a little bird is whispering, and we know that at the level of the CBN, we're not sure there's as much money as we think. And then, of course, there is the club. Yes, maybe very soon they will start buying finally, but by what time? Because we still have all of that going on the sea that nobody is buying. So we've got all of this going on. And so, Jeku, yes, it's scary. There is going to be a problem post-COVID. For me as a business, I'm thinking solutions, okay? It's clear. The recession staring us in the face. For businesses like Perez, he already has plans that he has structured 6 months, 3 months. For a school business where people pay when the term gets there, it's third term, school hasn't started, they can't collect money, how would they pay teachers? OT probably has some loyal clients. But if I'm not as big as OT, I'm just starting, I just started learning to sew in a area market. That's me here. And I've just managed to... We're not sure there's as much money. I've just managed to make 1 blouse or 2. So I am not a sway, debonair, big designer called OT. What happened to me? Me, small, tiny me. What do I do?
Okay, so Perez says that there's a recession staring us in the face. That's not correct.
It's here already.
The recession is here.
It's here.
The thing is that, so is a textbook definition of a recession that's staring us in the face.
But the reality is not.
The reality. So the textbook definition of a recession is actually defined, a recession is defined post the events. So the contraction has already taken place, and then two quarters down the line, you now look back and say, oh, there are 2 subsequent contractions, quarter contractions. So we're in a recession. So that's the textbook definition. But we don't have the luxury of waiting for 2 quarters to know that we have a contraction. We already have a contraction. In fact, we have an unprecedented contraction. None of us alive has ever witnessed this kind of contraction.
Absolutely.
And like I share with some people, there is no template anywhere for any economist or any business person to go and dust up a business school case study to adjust or to understand how best to operate in this situation. We've never, in recent history had a recession that has been triggered by a pandemic?
Sure.
We haven't. So you see, the problem with this pandemic is that it's so open-ended. The novel coronavirus is new. So we're learning things about it every day. We don't know whether it's going to recur again. We don't know whether there's going to be a flare-up. So it makes planning very, very difficult. Okay. Now, I want to bring this, narrow it down to the microcosm, because you know what we talk about, we have been talking generally, and I'm very careful when I'm talking with people like Perez, who their influence is international, so you have to.
I say, talk about me. Look at me here.
Let me bring this down to the state I live in, right? Which is River State. So let me use River State. The economy of River State is largely public sector and oil and gas. Every other thing flows from public sector and oil and gas, right? Now, public sector in River State is largely FAC allocation and IGR, internally generated revenue, right?
Yeah.
Now, FAC allocation is largely oil and gas. So, we have a situation where the FAC allocation has contracted. In fact, it's going to disappear totally. I don't know what we are going to do this month. Last month, we dipped hands in the Sovereign Wealth Stabilization Fund of 250 million. We took $150 million. So our change is now $100 million. If we collect from that one this month again, let's not even go there. So we see a contraction in FAC allocation, right? Now, NAPIMS has written the oil producing companies to reduce their operating expenses or cost by 40%. The oil producing companies have written the oil servicing companies to come up with proposals to reduce their service cost of their services by 40%.
Of course.
Right?
Yes.
Now, the oil servicing companies will write their vendors and suppliers and say, guys, you see that money I've been paying you, I cannot pay you again, so it has to reduce. Now, their vendors and suppliers go into the market now to buy stuff, right? This thing you are doing, I can't pay you for this kind of money. Now, all this thing is happening in a period where there is going to be inflationary pressure. So you see, price of things are going up, and your revenues are coming down.
Absolutely.
And then there is a lockdown. Okay. So, what we are seeing is nobody has seen it before. This is not like 2015. No.
You have to find a way to make this look attractive. Yeah.
This is not like 2015 at all. There is
you have to find a way to make this look attractive.
So Perez is using 2015 lessons. Well, it is a starting point. Okay. But this is definitely not like 20. So for the schools, you mentioned the schools. So let me just touch a bit about the schools. So you mentioned the schools are about to resume. Our schools can resume. In fact, there's even a dichotomy. So the expensive schools, the elite schools are resuming online.
No, the government has actually, let me give you information. Government has actually said that we shouldn't charge school fees. That the elite school, if you like, resume online. As far as the River State government is concerned, third term cannot start. So if you resume online, you are doing charity. That's what government has said.
Okay, so not a problem. So that poses a different type of problem. So if the school resumes online and you say they shouldn't charge anything, they shouldn't even charge tuition. Well,
nothing.
How would they pay teachers? The reality in this situation we have now is that there's no way on earth the micro businesses and the SMEs will survive without government intervention. Not possible, right? However, government has proposed a couple of things. The CBN, CBN has proposed a couple of things and measures. For the lack of a better way of describing it, I told somebody that is like somebody is having a Winston Churchill moment. But it pales in comparison with the problem that we have. So we are proposing both the quantum of fund for the intervention and the channels through which they are making those interventions.
Okay.
You know, when people want to kickstart an economy like this, where we are heading into a depression, because it appears that we're heading into a depression, and we haven't had a depression. So this is not a recession. This is a this is going to post-COVID, post the oil crisis, because demand for oil has collapsed totally. We are hawking our oil, nobody is buying now. Whether you say you are selling the oil at $12 per barrel or $21 per barrel or $80, there is no demand. Nobody is buying. The Oyibo people, the WTI, the US benchmark crude that collapsed, it was clear evidence that nobody was buying. It was speculators that bought.
Yeah.
And speculators did not want to take delivery of actual crude, so they dumped. So there's no demand. So for me, the question should be, what should governments do to support SMEs, right, and micro businesses, and how should they do it? So my discussion here this is where my discussion will focus. To talk about which businesses will do well post-COVID, right? It's like putting the cat. It's not even like putting the cat before the horse, because the businesses that should do well post-COVID, right, are the businesses that require support now.
Yeah.
The businesses that should do well post-COVID are the ones that require support. So if they don't get that support, there is no way they can do well post-COVID. I mean, this is no longer an industry thing. This is not an individual business thing. This is it's something that has to do with the global economy.
Yeah.
And the Nigerian economy in particular. Now, brilliant administration. So we can then break it down into segments. So if I were a state governor, I won't wait for the federal government. I mean, I require the federal government support, but there are some states that don't need to wait for the federal government. They have some capacity. I don't say they have significant capacity. They have some capacity to do things at a certain level. There was a radio interview I did on SMEs in about 2-3 years ago, and I was asked how I think government should support SMEs. You know, in Nigeria, it seems as if government and SMEs are in competition.
Okay, I need to understand that.
You know what they say about killing the goose that lays the golden egg, right?
Okay.
One thing we often hear is that the tax base is small, that we need to widen the tax base, right? In fact, ordinarily, we have what we call the joint tax board that's supposed to look at the aggregate tax that businesses are paying to determine. But there are a lot of taxes that are not covered. And you see, I tell people that when you talk about SMEs, you need to then look at the mosaic of taxes and rates. So let me give an instance. So when you say, I'm going to use Obiakpo because it's my local government. When you say Obiakpo local government has a sticker for one thing, it's a rate and it's a tax. To understand what an SME is going through, you need to aggregate the entirety of that cost. Now, in this instance, there are two problems. Government is looking for revenue. The businesses are trying to survive.
Yeah.
If we do business as usual, state governments will actually ratchet up their revenue collection, their taxes, etc.
Yeah.
But right now is when they are supposed to be some kind of tax forbearance. Because there's no money, there's no revenue, right? Or there's not enough money to kickstart the economy. So you tell this guy, you see this tax, you see this sticker of one thing, you see this local government something. You are not going to pay for the next.
Ministry of Environment borehole.
Yes.
Ministry of Health Inspection. Ministry of yeah.
You know these things properly.
So I run a business in this town.
So all those things. And you know, so I told somebody that nobody has actually sat down to count the number of those things. So there's some instance about 2 years ago, there's one certain Niger Delta state that I checked. they had about 52 different taxes. So all those things have to collapse. Government has to say, and government has to communicate to the local government, we can't do this thing for these businesses now. These guys are the heart of our economy. We need to jumpstart this economy, so let them be. That's one.
Let me just interrupt you at this point, because you make a salient point, the actual need for government support. But isn't that really the problem? Because you and I and all of us small businesses can have this conversation and sprint from now till kingdom come. The question is, how do we get this across to government? Who is listening, and will they do anything? And this is government, whether you're talking state or local or federal, because clearly businesses are in a dire situation where we hope that government is listening. So who is going to get this message across? How do we get the message across? How do we guarantee that they will hear us? What can we do?
See, I was talking to a top flight economist that I respect so much about a week ago. And he was sharing his concerns. He called me, he was bouncing off sharing his concerns and what he saw we're headed, right? And the fact that a lot of people do not understand where we're headed. A lot of people have no idea where we're headed. So two things are happening. We're about to hit rock bottom, as a rock bottom. So when we hit that rock bottom, nobody has time to politicize anything again, because people will be on the streets. So it's either you listen now, or you listen at the point where, because this thing we're saying, or this thing I'm saying, I'm not the first person to have said it. Several people have been saying it. People are making presentations to government at all levels on this problem. But government's reaction is insufficient, right? Because government still doesn't realize, one, the magnitude of the problem. Two, they also don't have the resources. So they don't know how to best to mobilize the resources. This is not the time to say, this person doesn't support our government, or this person is PDP or APC or ABDA. Not at all. All over the world, people are assembling their best and their brightest to think through this problem and come up with solutions. Right now, we haven't done that. Right now, we have, I want to use the cliche, several low-hanging fruits that we haven't thought about. Let me give you an example. CBN has come up with an intervention fund. The 50 billion naira, whatever. The highest loan there is about 25 million naira for SMEs. The smaller portion, the ones for household, about 3 million naira, you don't require CO, etc. But the one for 25 million naira require a registrable title. They may not register it, but the registrable title. We have been shouting for the past 10 years that we have too much debt equity, trapped equity. People have ancestral land that they inherited. People have houses that they bought. They are sitting on it. They don't have your phone. If any government, state government that is forward thinking right now, will be running around the clock, literally signing this per second, because you know what will happen? For people from their states, business from their states who have property that don't have title, will be disenfranchised from accessing that loan. Any other loan that comes like that, they can't access it. I have a friend who has a massive mall, right? In River State, but there is no title. They have been processing the title, right? But there's no title. So that kind of business cannot access this intervention fund. That business doesn't require 3 million naira, right? I mean, 3 million naira will be a drop in the ocean. It's not going to do anything. The second thing, we've talked about salaries. The government has to support the micro businesses and SMEs with salaries. It is not enough to be giving people. I'm coming. You see, this 20,000 naira I've been giving people is a joke. Let me tell you why it's a joke. It's chop money now. It's to eat. After a while, the marginal utility of that 20,000 naira will disappear. Now, when businesses are not operating, what other people? This is it will force an economy out of a depression or recession is helicopter money. You actually literally dash people money, but you don't dash people the money. You give people grants. In the USA, they are giving people grants, right? They are giving people loans, but they will write off the loans if the portion of that money is applied towards payroll for this period.
Wow.
So you don't need a database of all the vulnerable. They are not even vulnerable like that. All of us are now vulnerable. So the companies need support, right? To pay to manage payroll for the next 3 to 6 months. If not, they are going to unleash those people into
you're talking of 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months is for parade. For my own company, I don't know how I'm paying April. You're talking of am I parade? Please, I need you to I don't know if you're like Perez that has 3 to 6 months of salary stored. How are you? How is your business? What is your model? How are you surviving COVID-19? What can we learn from what you're doing?
Thank you very much. Am I there?
Yes.
Okay, I was afraid I wasn't visible, but thank God you noticed me.
You're very visible. I can see you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ma. This is one experience no entrepreneur ever prepared for, and I don't think anyone existing in business today has ever experienced something like this. You know, so about how we are coping in this time. Just like Perez had mentioned, we had to. Communication is one very effective aspect any entrepreneur or any leader needs to explore at this point in time. So what we did was to convene all our employees and communicate the situation at hand and what the effect is on the business, and had to resort to welfare packages for them. But regardless, one other thing we're doing is to remodel our business plan. Which is the fact that we have to leverage more on technology and digitize most of our product and see how we can sell more online. And even in discussing that, the question is who's going to buy, who's wearing what to wear, yes, which also poses a huge challenge. As much as the plans we have on ground may not necessarily address the issue right now and guarantee an instant benefit, the point is I have been more on the aspect of being able to, well, the post-COVID, perhaps when we get out of this, which is open-ended, as we all know, how do we get through it? And I tell every entrepreneur, the point is, apart from remodeling, infrastructure-wise, how can you set up the right infrastructure to ensure that at the point where this is all over, you can be considered as one of those businesses that can, meet whatever demand that comes after that. So, but right about now, what we're doing is basically welfare and then retraining of our employees, to be able to cope after the whole pandemic is over.
Okay, so that I can understand that, and that then makes sense. Retraining employees so that after this time is over, you can get back on track. My worry, however, is it's all good. This is all well and good. You can say this for now, but if you didn't store up, and I keep going back to the issue of storing up. If you didn't store up, what is going to happen to you? Deku is back. I'm trying to get him back in. Anyway, so what is going to happen to you if you didn't store up before now? What can you do? This is a big problem. This is something I'm worried about.
It's quite unfortunate, especially for businesses that didn't, and that's where the government intervention would have to come in. But you know, as like I like I tell some friends, I told them that this greatest opportunity or was that existed in their business or stock up to prefer, but we have to fall back. And if there is none, it will be a time and an opportunity for everybody to reevaluate their business model and realize that anyone who is in business should understand that it's essential to have a very effective savings plan. Stocking is something that any business should do with or without the event of maybe a pandemic or a lockdown as we have now. You know, it's unfortunate, but I think the only solution or the way out is the government intervention. But most importantly, every leader or every entrepreneur should get back to reevaluating their business model and see that it becomes something that we have to address, you know, way after this whole COVID-19 experience is over.
Paris, let me ask you something, and I think Jeku might also intervene. Let me ask you something. Is there a point where you sat down and said to yourself, in the course of all of this, that let's assume this business of COVID, the pandemic doesn't end till December, and what will or let's even assume that it ends and we hit rock bottom as a country in terms of the economy. Would it then begin to make sense for me as a small business? And I'd like your various interventions to say to myself, okay, all I've been doing all this while, for instance, is maybe selling selling hats, fascinators, and this business is not working. Nobody, no wedding, no nothing, no show. So my fascinators are not. I'm a one-man business making fascinators from my bedroom. Is this a good time for me to begin to think of other options? And what kind of other options can I think about? Because don't forget, my capital is tied down in my fascinators. It was interesting hearing the kinds of options in terms of funding that currently exist. But that funding is available for me if I have a business, right? If I'm doing this my small fascinator, what would you advise me to do? So, Neka, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I'd also like to hear what people have.
So I think that you don't. So first, if you are drowning, your first instinct is to survive.
Mm-hmm.
When you're drowning is not when you start thinking about building a boat. So at this point, everybody's thinking about survival. So that instinct for what new business can I do outside of what I have been doing all this while, I think it's going to be quite on the low side, except where people have a sudden aha moment where they spot something they can do. But I think that one of the easy way out is to also think about what are some of the skill sets inherent in the business, and how can they be adaptable to other things other than the primary things that we've been doing. I'll give an example. Yesterday, I saw an announcement by a very popular fashion house here in Lagos. They usually make suits. I think I made like one or two also with them. And then immediately after, the Lagos state government announced that they are going to start enforcing strict compliance with using of the mask in Lagos. The next thing, these guys announced, made it quite public and promoted it, that they have a very big, I think, work process where they have all their machines and all of that. So he announced that they will be shutting down and converting their entire equipment, their factory basically, to producing face mask in the next coming weeks. So you see that basically what they've done now is, instead of just being idle, instead of just shutting down, they are utilizing their machines, they are utilizing their people. And if the state government is unable to provide, which the state government will not be able to do, they will definitely need to partner with the private sector they would need people like these guys to be able to support government's efforts. Support government's effort in doing that. So I think that the first thing to do is to think about verticals. What are some of the verticals in your work process, in your industry that you can easily adapt without, because the truth of the matter is starting a new business or jumping into a completely different industry takes time. The processes will be completely different and all of that. So I think it's important to look within. What's possible? What's possible if I look within? What can I take from within and use as a survival tool? That's what I have to say.
Well, I agree with Perez in that aspect. But the question is, any business that would, go to such diversification, first thing must have been a business that had invested into infrastructure, or probably had the savings, because it's not like whatever you're going to produce now is you have the government support, or some form of funds has been made available to any of such business to say, okay, we can tap into this funding to produce this. And coming to think of it, it's something someone had also asked me, Oti, why don't you people diversify and start producing this? These when we talk about face masks, there's a lot to understudy. So we don't, in the course of trying to diversify or provide solution, then cause more harm, because there are certain criteria this face mask have to meet. There are certain compliances. So it's beyond just delving into their regulations. There are as regards maybe HSC policies and so on that you have to meet producing that. So it also poses its own challenge beyond just surviving. It poses its own challenge beyond that. How about businesses that does not have the infrastructure to go into such production? And it's not like the government, like I said, it's not like the government has made available funds to say, okay, we've made available these funds. All our PPEs, all our face masks would have to be produced locally. So any business that has the capacity, that has the infrastructure to meet up this production, we've made available these funds for you. So we don't rely on China for production and maybe importation of these things anymore. The question is, how many businesses were proactive enough while in business pre-COVID to had invested into infrastructure? Very few of them. So even in that production, you're going to require power to do that, and you're going to also a certain budget is required for you to successfully execute that model, because in doing this, your manpower as being your tailors, you have to pay them as well. That means you have to pull out funds from a certain budget to carry that out. So there's a lot to consider in even moving or diversifying into such a model.
Okay, guys.
Government has to intervene.
I don't want to sound like the party pooper, right? So first of all, diversification is good. I have a friend who has a factory in Abuja, and then at the height of this thing, she restructured the factory to produce hand sanitizers. So it's good. But there are two things here. There's a collapse of demand. What you guys are addressing is supply. So when you increase supply, who will buy? That is why I said, right, that we need to get the economy spending again. And that's the role that government has to play. Government has, okay, can you imagine if you lay off people, for instance, you lay off 50% of your staff, right? And everybody lays off 50% of their staff. Then you diversify and increase production of an item. Shaping that the same people who want to lay off will still need to come and buy the item. How will they buy the item?
Oh boy.
That's the reality here. Let me give you a classic recent example. Somebody told me that I was debating with somebody on Facebook, and then when OPEC and Russia, right, agreed on all production cuts, right, to move the price back up. So he told me, you see what I told you, that they have reduced production by about 10 million barrels a day. So price will go back up. So I said, it doesn't work like that. You have just addressed supply. You have not addressed demand. Demand has collapsed. So if you like, put your own price at $100 per barrel. Reduce supply. So long as there's nobody to buy, you can't sell. That is why we are hawking our oil now at a significant discount and nobody's buying. So if you diversify, right, maybe initially some people will buy. After a while, those people on the streets who don't have money, they cannot buy. So for me, in this part of by discussion, you guys will be talking about the nice things that SMEs should be doing. Me, I want to focus on how do we as an economy get people to start spending again, put money in people's hands. And that's why I keep referring to helicopter money. We need to put actual money in people's hands so that people can spend. And when people spend, they buy from OT, they buy from parents. If they don't have money to spend,
well, I think the question also comes from the reality of where will that money come from, because Nigeria makes money from oil. Every other thing seems to pale in significance to oil.
So there are several
ways. Oil is not giving us money, where will the money come from?
So there are several ways the money can come from. Right?
Okay.
In fact, the money is already coming. It's just that we're not applying it to the right things. So and it's not real money. A lot of these people who are spending this money are not spending real money in the sense that they earn money. They are creating money. Government has been creating money since last year, since 2 years. They have been creating money, but they are not channeling that money they created towards this segment of the economy. So I'm saying that if you can create through ways and means money, not a problem, but channel that money into the hands of the people who do the actual spending.
Did I hear you say ways and means, Cheku? Did I hear you say create through ways and means? That will, you're leading us to, I don't know what to do with the inflationary trends that will worsen with that.
Even calm down, that is me you're talking to.
Okay.
It's me you're talking to. We have been doing that. We have been doing that for the past 2 years. I can give you the statistics. So calm down. Calm down. We have been doing that. So I'm saying we are doing that and we're not channeling the money into the SME. So if you're already doing that, I'm not telling them to do what they're not doing. They're already doing it. So, and that's one. The second thing is that we even said we have an intervention fund for the healthcare sector, right? It's a 100 billion naira intervention fund. CBN just announced it. Do you know how they're going to fund it? They are going to fund it from dynamic differentiated cash reserve requirements of Nigerian banks. So let me explain to you how that works. Let me explain to you so that you appreciate when I say they can create money. A cash reserve requirement means that if a bank has XYZ amount of money, a portion of that money has to be sterilized with the CBN at zero cost, right?
Yes.
The government do that. Nigerian government does that because we are exchange rate targeting and we're inflation targeting, right? So you reduce the amount of money in circulation so that you don't have too much money chasing goods and services, and you don't have too much money chasing small exchange FX. So it manages that. So now, so that is cash reserve requirement. In January, we increased it from 22.5% to 27%, right? Not a problem. Let me give you some background. When I started banking in the 1990s, late 1990s, cash reserve requirement was 1%. So at 22.5%, we already have one of the highest cash reserve requirements in the world.
Yeah.
Right? So at 27%, let me not go there. But let me tell you what the differentiated dynamic cash reserve requirement is. Differentiated dynamic cash reserve requirement is that. So I've taken away 27.5% of your all the cash. All that deposit that bankers are out there begging people to give them money at interest, they'll go and keep it at CBN at no cost. Right?
Yeah.
So it then is that if my deposit reduces, you are supposed to balance me the 27.5% excess that you have taken. Dynamic differentiated cash reserve requirement means that if my deposit reduces, you don't balance me that money. And this is, so they determine that on their own. So it means that sometimes some of the big banks can have a cash, the differentiated dynamic cash reserve requirement of almost 50 to 80% of their total deposits. Why am I giving you this background? The CBN in the notes said that they are going to fund the healthcare intervention 100 billion from the differentiated dynamic cash reserve requirement they have. So in essence, CBN, the government is not bringing any money. Government is taking the deposits of me and you to fund that. Okay. So first of all, I don't want to go into the ethics of whether government can take our own money to fund that thing. I don't want to go into that. However, since you have decided to do that, let's also take that money now and create this helicopter money. Since that's what we want to do now. I'm not saying they should start it. They said they will start it. So the only problem there is that the risk is being taken by the banks. So it means that it's my deposit, me and use deposits, that if you don't come back, no problem. The real helicopter money that governments create from ways and means, right? Which when they create it, they use things like differentiated cash reserve requirement to mop up the excess liquidity. Most they don't want the money to come back in a depression. They just want the money to be out there so that people are spending it. People have to start spending. If people don't start spending, the SMEs will not survive. So if you ask how, where will the money come from? Just give you one example of where this money comes from. We can have other discussions offline.
You see,
okay.
I'm sitting down here, and I'm almost. I know you're not seeing me pulling out my hair, but I'm really, really pulling out my hair here, because all I can think about is clearly we have to activate this. Now, does government understand that? I have no clue. And if you were still in the bank, I probably would have come to pummel your tummy and say, now they cause our trouble. But I also know, I also know that right now your hands are tied. Okay, it's been an interesting conversation, and my fear is I'm hoping it's not all gloom, because we're sitting down and we will be shutting down soon. We've been at this for about an hour. Here is what I want to ask, because all of those listening have heard this, and it's evident we have to talk to government some more. Government needs to realize that they've got to increase spend. I think they know that already. There are enough economists who are parading the corridors of power who I'm sure are giving them that information. So, but from where I'm sitting, again, I know this sounds like you're asking a man whose legs have been cut off to walk, but that's what I'm going to do. Jeku, tell me, your job is to tell me as an SME that if you do this, you can survive. I mean, right now at this point, you've got to give me some hope. So we're all sitting here, and in addition to a miracle,
yes, I need the miracles. I need the solutions too. You need to tell her, because service businesses are usually the first anybody cuts off their budget.
True.
I tell you, people can't survive. So tell me right now, just tell me, what can we do? And we'll wrap up with that.
Okay. So the reality, even man, Perez, you're right. Service businesses are usually the first to go, honestly, right? But you see, people will have to eat. People will have to move around. People will have to take care of their health. People will have to live in a house, right? So when we address some of those things, so across that the entirety of the value chain of what should I call it, food, so agribusiness, agriculture, FMCG, those basic things, you have to take that. So there's some things that people will have to do, and in a depression, those things will still generate revenue. It's just that, and I don't want to sound like a party pooper. There has to be demand. People, see, when I talk about solutions, most times I talk about demand and I talk about effective demand, right? So demand says, when some people tell you the housing shortfall in Nigeria is 18 million housing units, wherever they get that figure from, it's almost like, but that's a different story. But is that the effective demand? Effective demand for me is defined by demand backed by the capacity to pay. If the demand doesn't have the capacity to pay, then it's just there now. It's up in the air. Nobody's going. If you create those 18 million housing units, nobody's going to buy it. So people want to feed. People have to eat.
Yeah.
But people need money to buy that food. So the businesses that will make money, in fact, a lot of these interventions that will come out ultimately, right, will benefit the businesses that will make money benefit from those interventions, because people will take money and buy food. Sorry, I don't want to burst your bubble, but that your business, you know, is the big boys' business. The big boys is the ones spending their money on your business. So the small man, what am I saying? The small man never used to spend money on your business. So what am I even saying?
I don't know what you're talking about. Eh?
So it's a big threat. This is the president's group CEOs of major corporates. So those ones, they will still have a budget.
So Jeku talk for me.
You and you on the same boat.
Nobody's
Let's
talking
leave this guy. So
Perez, are you hiring anytime soon?
We are looking for how to drop.
So for those micro and small businesses, right, that are positioned in those sectors where people, no matter what, no matter as a bad rich, they still have to do those things. Those sectors need the intervention of government to create the demand. That's why I said that the sectors, right, that will thrive, right, are still the sectors that require the intervention.
So, you know, I'm sitting down. All I can think about here is that for small businesses, this is tough times. And not all of us can be, you know, in agri or transport or medical supplies. Even shelter may not make too much money right now. Even shelter, even housing may not make a lot of money.
Will not.
So clearly, people are going to start with the most basic of human needs, which is food. If all of us go and start buying and selling and farming, then who is going to buy from who? Clearly, we need to rethink our models. But what has come out of this conversation is that government needs to intervene. There is no doubt about it. SMEs cannot survive. Financial institutions may have all the SME funding available in the world, but if structures are not put in place by government to support small businesses and then micro businesses, you know, the small business is even at least has maybe 1 week of the reserve to eat. The micro business, the person that is the daily, you know, day by day. I call, you know, people like me, akara money. If you don't take out your basin and put it there and fry akara, nothing for the day. So we akara money people, you know, what will happen to us? Government has to figure out how to ensure that we maintain our dignity and we do our business. And clearly, from the conversation we've had, handouts are not going to cut it. 20,000 and even 50,000 per person is not going to cut it. We're going to find ways to ensure that we're not doing that. That won't cut it. I want to thank everybody who's joined us. I think Otis having some challenge back and forth. So we're going to do something. Perhaps at 5 o'clock, we'll still have Oti and Binabo join us again to have a conversation around what they are doing and how we can survive. For now, I want to thank you. Thank you very much, Perez, for joining us. And
thank you.
Begin to consider how you will hire these people, because myself, Jeku, thank you very much. We've learned a lot from what you've said. And I suspect that, like I said, me and you are in the job market. You might get hired before me because, you know.
Perez will hire us.
Perez,
he does a lot of work in Rwanda. I've worked in Rwanda before. I can be a Rwanda.
I have 2.5 months lifeline. So
Perez is not looking for writers. Friends on Facebook, thank you for joining us.
Oh my God, thank you.
For the comments, we thank all of you who found time to join us for conversations with Aibee. We will have more conversations because right now, this is about ensuring that we move things forward, whether we're talking at business levels or at individual levels or at household levels or at community levels. All of us have to, get together and get going. But while we're at it, please stay safe. Keep washing your hands. Still do your best, under the circumstances to maintain social distancing. Did you see that, when you touch stuff, we want you to be healthy. I know we've got to make money, but like someone posted on Facebook, I believe early this morning, when there is a war, people just worry about coming out of the war alive. Yeah. They don't really think about all the other logs with. When there's a war, people don't say, how do I go and look for my daily bread? They're worried about, what, can I just come out on the other side of the war alive? That's where we are now. Let me thank everybody who's joined us and say that we'll do a bit more of this from time to time. And it's been a pleasure talking with you. Teku, you're the man of my dreams right now. Parents,
all right.
Keep a job open for me. I'm very thankful. Thank you. It's been a great time and it's been a wonderful day.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.